actually behind. All right, good evening. It's now 7 o'clock on Tuesday, April 23rd, the 2024. It's time to call to order this meeting of the Chelmsford Conservation Commission. My name is Carl Bischoff. I am the chair of the Conservation Commission, and we will be following the published and posted agenda. The meeting is both in person and through Zoom. We will continue the meeting in person only in the case of the Zoom meeting not working properly. It is being recorded, and it is going to be available on the YouTube, on the telemedia website and on the YouTube. I will say right now that we were here far too late at our last meeting, and none of us want to be here that late again, as I'm sure many of you also don't want to be here that late. So we're going to start limiting a little more some of our discussions, a little tighter. So just be aware if I'm pushing a little bit. It's trying to keep the meeting moving, so it's in the interest of everybody getting out of here at a reasonable time. We still want to be thorough and compliant, so keep that all in mind. And so we start with citizens' concerns, open session. Are there any issues that want to be brought to the attention of the commission that are not on our agenda? And I am told we have one person who has something.
Chris LaValle, 10 Edgewood Road, Precinct 10, Town Meeting Rep. I wanted to bring to your attention something I noticed this weekend while I was driving on Riverneck Road. The St. Joseph Cemetery, I believe, was in the process of clearing a ton of trees, massive trees. And I wasn't sure if you were aware of it, if it was a known area, because I think that there's a vernal pool in that area as well. At least I thought I saw one on the GIS map. So I wasn't sure if you guys were aware. So I want to make you aware.
Okay, thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Appreciate your input. Thanks. Anyone else have anything else? Nope. Okay. So first on our agenda in the open session is the request for a certificate of compliance at 129-058. This is the 28 Central Square site. David, you did visit the site, I think?
Yes, I visited I visited it twice. The last time was last Friday. I visited with Jim Harrington, who's the closing attorney, I think, working for the seller. And that was very helpful. I hadn't noticed it before, but actually the property line had been staked. So I was able to see that. The issue here, as you know, from the site visit and thinking about it a little bit more, is that it's become infested with invasives, you know, in particular Japanese knotweed, which really was not on anyone's radar screen in 2001 when this order of conditions was issued. So that's one of the reasons why it doesn't look like nicely, mowed grass any longer. There's also a question in my mind whether the parking lot and the adjacent property went in the meantime. But anyway, that's not an issue for this. So I recommend the commission issue the certificate of compliance, because there's nothing in the order about controlling invasives, and that's just outside the scope of the original order of conditions.
Okay. Any questions from anyone?
No. I move. I move that we issue a certificate of compliance.
Second?
Motion from Chris, second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we will sign that and move on to our next one. Thank you, David. Next one is also a request for a certificate of compliance, 129-0755. This is for 8 Lady Slipper Lane, and I believe you also looked at that site as well?
Yes, I visited the site with Brian last Tuesday, a week ago. The issue there is everything looks good. Brian has issued a certification. The only issue there is that there's a fence surrounding the perimeter of the lawn, which the fences actually are exempt. However, there's a requirement that there be 6 inches of clearance left between the ground and the lowest part of the fence to allow for wildlife passage, and this one is not in compliance with that. So, everything with regard to the project is fine, but that's the fence is not in compliance with the exemption. So
Any idea how long ago that fence was installed?
I don't. Do you know, Brian?
For the record, Brian Gaudreau with Hancock Associates. So the original order was issued back in 2012, and it would have been installed 2012, 2013. So what's that, 12 years ago, 11 years ago at this point.
Okay, and so the fence is not compliant,
The fence is not compliant.
but the original order was saying.
Yep.
Okay, looking around the commission, Chris, do you have any thoughts, or
I'm okay with it. I'd be willing to waive it.
Mark?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, if the space is probably 3.5 inches in the fencing.
What kind of fence is it?
So it's an aluminum kind of picket. So it's got the 1/2 inch rails between it. So they're yay big. It's not the small chain link fence.
Okay.
And there were sort of areas that were not flush with the ground. That helps at all.
Okay.
If they can't get in because it's too small, I'm not worried about them not getting out. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
David, total length roughly?
Of the fence,
Big, little?
probably 100 feet.
Yeah,
something
it's
like
the
that.
entire. It's the backyard.
And is that on
The lawn area.
excuse me, sorry, Brian. Is that on the coolest side or the opposite side of Lady Slipper? If I have my
I think
geography
it's on the
right.
opposite side.
Correct.
Yes.
It's uphill from
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Got it, thank you.
John.
All set.
I'll take a motion.
So there are actually two motions are needed because there's one for the original and one for the amended order of conditions. You can do it all in the same motion.
Okay.
Issue the two.
I move that we issue the certificates of compliance for both the original and the amended.
Motion by Chris. Second.
Second.
Second by John. I see the arm. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll
Thank you.
pass it. Brian, thanks for helping on that. And next is the report on the, from the planning board liaison.
Hello again. So last meeting, we did end up approving 181 Chelmsford Street, the car wash. We don't have the agenda yet for the May 8th meeting, but we did continue 270 Billerica, Hildreth, and 93 Brick Kiln to that meeting. So we'll be hearing those then. But we don't have the rest of the agenda out yet. One thing I did want to point out, our meetings starting in May, because of the way the days fall in that month, are going to be staggered. So it won't be the same week starting in May. It'll be a staggered week. So just keep that in mind with timing of any questions or anything like that. It'll be a little bit different.
Okay.
Chris, the status of a aquifer protection permit for 191 Chelmsford, is that an action that your board did take or will take?
Yeah, for 191 Chelmsford, that has all been approved.
Okay, thank you.
Finalizing the facts on the decision.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Appreciate the update. Regulatory hearings, moving forward, the first one here is an RDA, Town of Chelmsford, 119 and 150 Mill Road. ROW Trevor, our friend Trevor is here representing the applicant, and we do have a notice, I believe.
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in Room 204 at the Chelmsford Town offices on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by the Town of Chelmsford for proposed work within 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at the paved public road right-of-way in the vicinity of 119 and 150 Mill Road. The project entails installation of 3 new catch basins, manhole, and connecting drain lines.
Yep, so in this location, if you are familiar with Mill Road, It's on the belly of the road, so all water runs to this point. And currently what happens is, the water builds up on either side of the road, sediment builds up there, and then eventually it erodes the side of the road and everything washes down into the stream right there. So to fix that, what we're proposing to do is install 3 deep sump catch basins in the area and link them to a manhole, and that way it collects that storm water, treats it with the deep sump catch basins, and then properly discharges it. The other thing is I've proposed silt fence and sock around the perimeter of this whole area so that, if there's any disturbance outside of edge of pavement, it will capture it if there's a rain event. That's the other thing. But, this type of drainage work, what happens is they will bring the structures to the site a week or 2 before, stage it in the area, and then all aggregate material excavated and any aggregate material put back in is handled that day. It's not really stockpiled on site.
Okay. David, anything to add?
So at least in theory anyway, Trevor, all of the work is within the paved.
Correct.
Within
Yep.
pavement.
Correct. In theory, there might be a little disturbance outside, but that will be loamed and seeded if need be.
So I think being extra safe with erosion control, I think that's fine.
Okay. Chris?
I'm good, Carl.
Yeah, Mark?
I'm good.
Bill?
Good.
Good.
John?
All set.
Okay.
So need to close the hearing first.
I move to close the hearing.
Public comment? Any public comment?
Doesn't look like.
Nope, no public comment. Okay. Move to close the hearing from Chris, second from John. All in favor to close the hearing?
Aye.
Okay, hearing's closed.
Just a -3.
I move that
Standard
we,
conditions, yeah.
yeah, I move that we approve with a -3 determination.
Okay.
Second.
Motion from Chris, second from Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. World record time. We will get that, the paperwork drill, so we'll get that to you, Trevor, and I think
Awesome.
you're on next.
Yep.
So the next one is also an RDA for the town of Chelmsford, 260 Old Westford Road, which is the Roberts Field area. Trevor, again, is representing the town of Chelmsford, the DPW. And Chris, do we have a notice to read again?
Yes, pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing here in room 204 in the Chelmsford Town offices on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by the town of Chelmsford for proposed work within 100-foot buffer zone to inland bank at Roberts Field, which is 260 Old Westford Road, further identified as Assessors Map 58/Block 276, Lot 1. The project entails installation of sub-drain and pipe to connect to an existing catch basin.
Yep. So in this location, we witnessed quite a few times last year with all the rain. That water just sheet flows across that big grass field. Grass won't absorb all that water, especially with the water we got last year. So it sheet flows across, and unfortunately, the playground is, again, in kind of a little bit of a belly, so it captures the water, and you just got to wait till it infiltrates through the ground and gets out of there, which can take a day or two. So the playground was closed a few days last year. So the purpose of this drainage project here is we plan to install a sub-drain that will be essentially wrapped in fabric so silts don't get into the sub-drain pipe, filled with stone so water can easily move through it. And it's going to be actually stone all the way to the top. So as that water sheet flows across on the surface, it easily falls right into that subdrain and runs all the way out to the nearest catch basin in the street. This, again, is within the 100-foot buffer zone, and I've proposed silt sock and fence on the downslope side of all this work. And yeah, the goal of this project is to capture that sheet flowing water, but also make sure that we get that playground to drain quicker right after a rainstorm, so we don't have to close it every time.
Okay. David, any comment?
No, really simple. I think the installation of the erosion control is really the only condition, again.
Okay. All right. Questions, Chris?
I'm good.
I guess I'm a little surprised it wasn't done in the original engineering.
I heard we almost tried to put in some drainage at this location originally, but it just fell through, so here we are now.
No comment, right?
No comment, Mark.
I know.
It's a higher pay grade.
I'm done.
Bill?
I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. John?
I'm good.
All right, I'll take a motion to close the hearing. Public input, any public input?
I move to close the
Yeah.
public hearing.
Motion from Chris, second from Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We close the hearing. Let's see, take a motion to
I
approve.
move to approve with a -3 determination.
Motion from Chris. Any second? Second from Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you very much,
So,
guys.
Trevor, a DPW is going to be doing this work, right? You're not going to hire?
No, this is gonna be bid out. Actually, the bid is this Thursday at 10 or 10:30. It's gonna be by a contractor. So, in my bid documents I put together, they'll follow the sediment controls I proposed on this plan, but also it specifically calls out that they have to follow whatever conditions you guys put forth for that, which is part of their bid documents, and they get paid for that.
So we'll add a pre-construction meeting
Yep,
to
we
the
definitely will.
conditions. And the same is true for the previous RDA.
Yep, correct. Yep.
Okay.
So we'll have a pre-construction meeting, and we'll discuss this. Yep.
Okay,
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
thanks. Next one we have is a continuation from the last meeting, which is an NOI, which is the 20 Pine and 1 Frederick Street. And
Yes. So I received a request for a continuance on that one. I have not yet had a chance to look at DEP's comments, which they've just issued. But Courtney tells me that DEP has hit them with some pretty substantial requirements. So she has requested a continuance to May 14th.
And part of that project appears to be in the natural heritage endangered species.
No, it's not, and
It's not? I'm
No,
just
no,
looking
it's-
at the
no, it's
map
not.
here.
No, and it's confusing. It's not in the estimated priority habitat, which
Oh,
is
good.
which is the regulated
Yeah.
MESA habitat. It is in core habitat and critical natural landscape, but that has no regulatory
Got it.
bearing. That's only for planning purposes.
Okay, thank you. The map is a little unclear.
I move to continue to our next meeting on May 14th.
Is that the right meeting to go to?
Yeah, I mean, that's 3 weeks, it's 3 weeks away. Hopefully, be able to make progress. I'm going to work closely with her on this.
Okay, okay. Motion from Chris, second from Mark. All in favor to continue?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We'll continue that one to May 14th. Thank you. Just a question, David, you said there was a DEP number issued.
A DEP number has been issued.
Okay.
They did not post any comments initially, so
Okay.
thought we might be able to close tonight, but
They did.
Courtney tells me they have put in some comments.
Okay, all right, we won't be closing that. All right. RDA, this is this is 10 Bonanza Road, RDA for AGM Raka Buzaman, 10 Bonanza Road. The applicant and property owner are one and the same, and we do have a notice.
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in Room 204 here at the Chelmsford Town Offices on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owner AGM Rakabuzaman for proposed work within riverfront area, isolated vegetated wetlands, and associated 100-foot buffer zone at 10 Bonanza Road further identified as Assessors Map 118/Block 451, Lot 21. The project entails cutting, filling, and removing trees, including grinding stumps to regrade backyard and extending existing lawn.
Thank you, Chris. We have the applicant here.
So I think you're there, Rakib?
Yeah, I'm on the Zoom.
Okay, so why don't you tell the commission what you want to do?
Yeah, so my first priority was if I get the permission to fill the wetland only on my property, not the full wetland. If I don't get that one, then I'm also okay to don't touch the wetland, just extend my lawn outside of the wetland. And there's a hilly area on my property. David has visited yesterday, and he also visited last year. So I can also, my main target is to take the soil from that up hilly area, and I also have some holes in my backyard. Use that soil to fill that holes, and make my backyard a level one, so that I can make some playground for my child there. And also, I want to put green grasses all over my backyard.
Okay, David, do you want to?
Sure. So I have visited the property a few times. Most recently was on Monday. So if you look at the screen here, there's a isolated vegetated wetland up in this location, a portion of which is on Rakib's property. I told him that it really can't be filled. Because if it's filled, then there will just be more water going on to adjacent properties, the neighbor's property. So I explained that to him. He understands. The only other potential concern, I think, with regard to the functions and values of the wetland is it might be a vernal pool. On Monday, I did take some time to look at it. I didn't see any egg masses or any tadpoles, but I think it probably is worth going back, taking another look, a closer look. My suggestion to the commission is that if it's not a vernal pool, that the commission allow this. My understanding from Rakib is that he'd like to go within 10 feet of it. Again, I think if it's not a vernal pool, I don't think that's going to be a problem as long as there's erosion control that's put in place. But I talked about that with him. Let him know that needs to be done. Then it's mainly a matter of doing a little bit of cutting here, removing this high point here, and then putting it over into a depressed area over here, replanting it with grass. Rakib, I know in your original submission you said taking trees down, but I don't think you're planning to do that, right?
No. So I am not taking any trees down.
Okay.
So you see some tree stump there. So I want to grind that one to make this one area down.
Yes,
so not cut down any trees.
Yep. There are some old stumps up here that will come out as part of the regrading, and he'll would chip those, but no trees are proposed to come down.
So are you planning to go back to confirm
Yes.
it's a vernal pool or okay.
Yes, yeah, I'm planning to do that probably Thursday.
And is the upland habitat adequate for a vernal pool?
It's really marginal. I mean, there is a little bit of woodland I guess it would be the east of this pool, where he's proposing to do the regrading up in this area. It's even more marginal. It's mainly some kind of ground cover. I don't know exactly what the species is. Very low to the ground. There is some leaf litter, and I know Rakib has said that he's seen snakes there. So I think there's a couple ways the commission could handle this. Is to approve this contingent upon it not being a vernal pool, and close the hearing tonight with that condition, or just keep it open while I go out and verify. And then if it does turn out to be a vernal pool, then, decide on, what the commission would then allow.
Okay. John, why don't we start at your end?
I think I'm going with you as far as, let's just go with it not being a vernal pool, and you make your decision on that, and that's good with me.
Well, I'm not saying categorically it's not a vernal pool. I haven't seen any evidence yet that it is, but it deserves a closer look. So what I'm suggesting is you could approve it and close the hearing tonight,
Right.
saying as long as it's not a vernal pool, Rakib can do what he's proposing as long as he doesn't come any closer than 10 feet to it. Or you could keep it open and I verify, again, one way or the other. If it does happen to be a vernal pool, then, we can keep the hearing open and discuss, what the commission would allow him to do, if anything.
I'm good with, like I said, closing it tonight and letting them get on, providing it's not a vernal pool, providing the regrading of the yards are all gonna mesh together with everybody else's.
Yep,
He just wants to make use of his yard,
yep, right.
which is good.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, David, the only question I would just ask, and you've probably done this, if you work with a homeowner next time you're out there to see if there's any opportunity to preserve or maintain some of that little bit of upland habitat that you referenced. I don't know if that fits with the homeowner's plans, but, a couple of shrubs or something, or, I'm comfortable with you figuring that out.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Bill?
I'm okay with approving it tonight and based on your next trip over there. And when you're there next time, David, could you show him where the silt fence and the limit of work would be that you're
Sure,
comfortable
yes.
with?
Yes, but he is hiring a contractor to do this work, and I made it clear that I would have to meet with a contractor.
Right, but I want
Right.
to make sure that
Yeah.
the limit of work, it doesn't starts going
Right.
into the area that
Yes.
you're concerned about. So
Sure.
if you could show him where we're expecting the silt fence to be, but I'm fine with approving it tonight based on your next visit.
Mark?
No, I think I echo the same thing you guys are doing. Give them a go-ahead until you find something different.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, I just want to make sure there's no filling of wetlands. That's obviously, something we don't want to happen. And then number two, I'd like to see this documented for the files going forward. So if we could annotate or amend the plan that we have now, just to make sure it's clear what we're approving and not approving, because I want to make sure there's no confusion 5, 10 years from now.
Yep, good point.
So my only question is, what are we doing if you do find that it's a vernal pool? So I'm good with the approach of approving contingent on it not being a vernal pool. But what happens if you say, oh, it is?
Well, and assuming he wants to do some work out there, he'd have to refile, and the hearing would have to be
Okay.
reopened.
Okay. So I want to be clear that that's what would happen if that was the case. Okay. So any further questions? Anything from the audience, from the public? Any questions from the public?
So, Mr. Chairman, I move then that we close this hearing.
Okay, I take a motion from Chris.
Second.
To close, and second from Peter. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hearing's closed. Take a motion,
Make a motion then that we issue -3, well, is it a 3 and 2?
Be a -2 and a -3.
So a -2 and 3 determination to approve the project with the provision that our agent go out and verify that there's not a vernal pool there. And obviously, if there is a vernal pool, then we'd have to, rescind our approvals. So moved.
okay, with the conditions that, normal standard conditions. Yeah. Motion
And-
from Chris,
Second.
second from Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Project's approved. Thank you for your time. David you can be in touch with David
Yeah.
to get your information, your paperwork. But please make sure you have David working with the contractor.
Yeah, sure. I will make sure that.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rakib.
you.
I'll be in touch.
Okay. Moving right along. RDA, this is a new RDA. This is the Stop and Shop Supermarket Company, care of Retail Business Services at 232527 Summer Street. Jennifer Sweet, Haley and Aldrich is representing the applicant, and we have a notice.
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing here in Room 204 at the Chelmsford Town offices on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by the Stop and Shop Supermarket Company, C/O Retail Business Services, on behalf of property owners 23-25 Summer Street LLC and 27-29 Summer Street LLC for proposed work within a riverfront area and 100-foot buffer zone to inland bank and bordering vegetated wetlands at 23-27 Summer Street, further identified as Assessors Map 84/Block 333/Lot 19 and Map 84/Block 333/Lot 15. The project entails connecting 23-27 Summer Street residences to existing public water supply using directional drilling techniques.
Nicely done, Chris. Thank you very much. So do we have the applicant on Zoom?
Yes.
Hello. Can you please
Hi.
State your name for the record and give
Hi,
us...
I'm Jennifer Sweet. I'm a licensed site professional with Haley and Aldrich, and I'm here representing Retail Business Services. We were the former owner of the, now I think referred to as the Chelmsford Town Center at 20 Boston Road. Just to give a little bit of background to why we're here, back in 2000, there were chlorinated solvents detected in groundwater in the area. Extensive investigations ensued, and one of the sources was identified as a former dry cleaner that was located at the Chelmsford Town Center shopping plaza, and a building that has since been demolished. Since that time, there's been extensive investigations conducted and multiple phases of remediation to treat the source of that release of chlorinated VOCs. In recent follow-on investigations associated with this disposal site, we have identified a residence located at 27-29 Summer Street that is still on, that does not have public water supply connected to the residence. They use a private well. And we have tested that well water and did discover the presence of chlorinated VOCs in the drinking water. Thankfully, the concentrations are below drinking water standards, and it's still safe to drink at this time. But the long-term remedy that we're looking at to address this situation is to provide public water supply to this home. It is the only home within that was identified within the disposal site area that is on private water and not on currently on public water supply. And so my colleague Stu Wiley's here. He can, I'm gonna let him describe a little bit more what we want to do, but in preparation for to look at the feasibility of providing public water to this home, we looked at different water alignments and how to get a water line extended there. The most feasible option is to come off of an existing water line that is located at the corner of Brook and Summer Streets. And so we would pass through, the home at 27-29 is owned by Paul Farina. He also happens to own the residence on the other side of Beaver Brook, which is 23-25 Summer Street. And so in the process of extending a water line, we would need to go underneath of Beaver Brook, and at the same time would upgrade the service to the 23-25 because it's currently sort of under, I think there's low water pressure there, undersized. So that's sort of the background of why we need to extend this water line and looking to use horizontal directional drilling techniques as a minimally invasive way to do this underneath of the brook. Also should note on this figure that you're showing, we did engage LEC environmental wetland scientists to go out in advance of this application to map the resource areas. And so those are shown on this figure. I think there were only 2 wetland, bordering vegetated wetland flags, which is in the orange color. And then as you can see, the embankment lines in blue, and then the buffer zones extending from that, off of that location. So the work that we're proposing to do would not occur within the BVW, but would be below the brook and then in associated buffer zones. Stu, do you want to kind of explain the process for the construction?
No, that was actually a great overview. I don't have a whole lot to add at this point, unless there's specific questions from the members of the committee or anyone else. Essentially, we did look at where there's a long history as to why the water lines do not extend to the 2729 property. It has to do with the fact that, well, the brook is there, and then also just the history of the development of that area. So the mains were terminated at the end of Brook Street, and then there was another one terminated sort of almost at the end of Grove Street. And we've looked at both options, and the directional drilling to come from Brook Street, make a connection to the property at 2325, and then go under the brook and then connect 2729. So it's really the intent of the work is to provide public water to a house that currently is on a private well. And yeah, that's.
Can you just?
Stu
I
did
can't see
meet
the
with
plan very
water.
well, so it's hard
Yeah.
for me to speak to it. I know that's our plan, but I can't see the details. Otherwise, I'd walk through it more. But
Well, I guess I'll go to David and
Oh,
ask
there we
David.
go.
Yeah. David, do you want to just give us your?
Sure.
You-
I've been involved with a number of directional drilling projects. Primarily to extend water mains. They have a very good track record. It is quite safe with respect to potential impacts on wetland resource areas. I know, Stu, we did talk about a contingency plan just in case that there is some breakout of the. You said bentonite is used within the drill pipe, right? So maybe you could talk a little bit about the contingency plan just in case something does go wrong.
Yep, no, that's correct. We actually did a test boring a few weeks ago adjacent to Beaverbrook to get a better understanding of the subsurface conditions. And one thing that's done in directional drilling is there's a drill fluid that's used both to help cool the drill bit, if you will, as well as to sort of maintain the integrity of the borehole to help prevent the migration of and the drill fluid is it's a bentonite clay, all natural. Most of it's just water, but obviously we are going to be doing the necessary engineering and design work to ensure that we don't have an impact. But there is a contingency plan, as we discussed yesterday, David, that we will be putting together. We plan to put together as a matter of course, and so this is the reason this technology is used. It's actually used in a lot of urban areas where you don't want to disturb utilities or existing properties. It's also used in sensitive areas such as wetlands for essentially extending utilities where you need them to go, and because it is minimally disruptive.
So I think this can be a negative termination with the conditions that, number one, work closely with a contractor, because a contractor will be hired to do this, someone which I think does really only directional drilling. And then preparation and submission of an, I think you called it an inadvertent release mitigation plan. And then Peter, I think you had a question about dewatering.
Oh, yeah. Stu, I assume that there's a pit at either end that the directional drill is put into, and I was just curious if there's, what your plan was for any dewatering, and specifically any discharge of a trash pump that might be required to dewater.
Nope, that is correct. We're going to be working with the driller to come up with those details as well as with our engineers. Sometime, depending on the elevations and the ultimate, I guess, three-dimensional path of the bore, we may do sort of a pit launch directional drill. But you're right, the drilling fluid will be recirculated, come back into the pit, and then collected. And if we need to, we'll have a vac truck on site to collect that. To make sure it's not getting indiscriminately discharged.
Yeah, thanks. That was one half of the question, and then I wasn't very clear. Might you encounter groundwater in the pit, though, that you need to dewater and just pump out, irrespective of the bentonite?
Yeah, I mean, if we do have groundwater, we will similarly do the same thing. It'll come back with the drill bit as part of the return. The bottom of Beaver Brook is approximately 8 feet below ground surface. The groundwater, we didn't put in a well recently, but there are a couple of wells that were put in by Mass DEP a few years ago. I want to say groundwater was at about 15 feet. So depending on the final boring alignment, there may be groundwater encounter. We may be right at the interface.
Yeah, I think I thought we would be mostly above the water table for the pole pits, but obviously the water line.
Oh, the pole pits for sure, but the actual the bore path under the brook might.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Groundwater.
Thank you. I didn't know that term, pole pit. So yeah, that was my
it's a
only
pole
question.
pit or a bore pit or
Yeah.
a launch pit, depending on the.
Yeah, those should be above the water table, so
Oh, for
those
sure.
should not require dewatering. So I don't think so. There shouldn't be groundwater dewatering in terms of.
But not for the pits. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I must have missed.
No, I
misunderstood the
wasn't
question.
clear. Yeah.
I think
Thank you.
Stu, I think you told me that the pole pits would go down 4 feet.
Yeah,
Approximately.
again, we're working on the final design. Our first step was to come before this commission to make sure that, what we were proposing was reasonably acceptable before we got too far ahead of ourselves with extensive design. But that will be coming because we want to make sure we do this
and again, not to
correctly and safely and
Okay.
Okay.
Peter, do you have any more questions?
No, I was just thinking of sediment from a trash pump going all over the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's not
Take care of that.
that's not going to happen.
Got
I
it.
wouldn't have a job if that
Got
happened.
Okay. Bill, do you have any questions?
No, I'm fine.
Mark?
Did Chelmsford Water District give you okay on this? Is they okay with design?
Yep. We've been in contact with Bruce Canada on several occasions, and they've actually provided very specific details in terms of what they want for connections and feeds. Once we run the main 2-inch line to both the properties, we have to get water gates to each of the individual units on both the properties, and so they've provided what they require. They give me an estimate for what the fee's going to be to make the connections for us. So yeah, we've been in touch with them.
And we also just have been engaging with Trevor Collins, DPW and Engineering Department, to if we need to coordinate with them for sort of the alignment locations as well. So, and other, street opening permits and those kinds of things that we might need.
Okay. All right. Mark, anything else?
Did nothing was available on Grove Street or coming down from Billerica Road?
Same thing on Grove Street. The main terminates actually one house in, and the issue with coming from that side is I don't know if it's a bedrock knoll or but there's a very steep knoll between those. We'd have to cut across a property to get there, and alternatively we'd have to go all the way around the corner. So we did look at this. This is the more feasible alternative. And believe it or not, directional drilling is actually less expensive than open cut trenching.
Yeah, I
I
believe
get
it.
it. Okay, thank
Not
you.
that, I mean, economics are a factor, but they're not the main driving factor. Practically this,
Okay,
and especially since Mr. Farina owns both these properties and his current water line at 2325 is apparently way undersized. Don't know when it was installed, but it's only 3/4 of an inch. So he's been
okay.
fighting with water pressure issues for many years.
Thank you. All right, Chris, any
good. I'm good.
questions? John, do you have any questions?
I just got one question. These pipes are gonna be sleeved?
No, essentially what they do is they bore a hole,
Yep,
go all the way through to where they want
Right.
to come up out of the ground, then they hook up and actually pull a 2-inch diameter, probably likely be an HDPE pipe back through it, and that becomes the water main, quote unquote.
but the water main is not gonna be sleeved?
No, it's just it's a direct buried 2-inch HDPE pipe.
Okay, but that's not our call.
Okay,
Good question, but,
well, I know for a fact, on certain runs, the Chelmsford Water Department wants a sleeved service.
Yeah, no, I think Chelmsford Water District, I mean, if they want something different, we can certainly discuss that with them, but
Yeah.
they actually were the ones who told us they wanted a 2-inch line, so I can, obviously,
okay.
we'll finalize those
Let
details
them,
with.
that's what they do for a living?
yeah, good
Yep.
question. Okay. All right,
No,
so,
good, yeah, we'll finalize those details. We need to make sure that we comply with what the Chelmsford Water District wants, and what they've told me is that they want a 2-inch,
okay.
2-inch line with 1 inch.
Thank you very much. So,
Yep.
David, that means we are okay with this. You said you'll be working closely with the
Yep.
contractor and with these folks.
Yep. So I recommend a negative determination, yeah, just with the conditions to, work closely with the contractor. I can put in something about the mitigation plan and the dewatering as well, but that's all gonna be in whatever final plan that.
And you get to
Haley-
review that.
Yes, yep.
Okay. So this is an open meeting, public meeting, so are there any questions from the public? Anyone have any comments or concerns? I don't see anybody coming up, so
I move that we close the public hearing.
thank you, Chris. Motion from Chris, second from Mark. All in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
The hearing is closed.
I move that we approve this matter with a -2 determination,
2 and 3.
2 and 3, with the special conditions that the contractor works very closely with our agent on this matter, and also that we have prepared and submitted an inadvertent release mitigation plan to our agent prior to the work beginning. And any other special conditions?
And then just a dewatering plan as well, but as I say, that's all gonna be in, the final plans that
Okay.
Yeah.
that Haley and Aldrich and the contractor come up with, but, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of redundancy.
Yeah. So we'll add again the condition of a dewatering plan as well being submitted in the final plans to our agent. So moved.
Okay, motion from Chris with those conditions. Second from Mark. I see a hand raised from Mark, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your,
Thank you.
Thank you.
your presentation tonight. Very nice. Thank you. It's
All
good
right,
to
thank
see,
you, Joe.
good to
Thank
see
you,
that
gentlemen.
resident is gonna get both an upgrade in the one house and they'll like that, and then having cleaner water. It's amazing to find a
I would have
house
never
in town.
expected that.
There's a house in town that doesn't have private residence that
I would
doesn't
have
have.
never expected that wasn't a main going
In that,
through
in
there.
that area, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Just a
amazing.
loop,
Yeah,
just to have a loop.
okay,
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
thanks, good night.
Have a good evening, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is the hearing for 10 Hildreth Street, and I believe we are being requested to continue
Received
this
a
one.
request for a certificate of compliance, so we weren't planning on having any discussion about that? Okay,
So,
need a motion to May 14th.
I move that we continue 10 Hildreth Street matter to our next meeting on May 14.
motion from Chris to continue, second from
Second?
Bill. All in favor to continue?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous. We'll see 10 Hildreth on May 14th. Okay, next one is 270 Billerica Road. This is a request for amended order of conditions continued from, actually, this says November, but it's from
That's
our last meeting. So I will say up front, I would like to keep our discussions for this one, the next one, which is 191, and the last one, 93, no more than 30 minutes. I'd be very happy if they weren't 30 minutes, but I'd like to try to do that. We're at 7:50, so that goes for all of us at the commission as well as anyone in the public and in the on the applicant side. So, yeah, we don't have to read a notice on this one. So, hello, Casey. Good evening.
Good evening to the Commission. Casey Ferreira with Howard Stein Hudson. So, the last meeting we left off with, we had some peer review comments to take care of. What we stated back to you guys was that we did not have any issues or objections to any of the peer review from myself as it relates to stormwater, and then Ed as it relates to the RAM plan. What we've done is we've provided responses back on how we will address each item. We have not yet addressed the items. I have said in my responses on or before May 1st, you guys will have an updated plan, O&M, long-term pollution prevention plan from myself, and it will address every comment that was on that peer review. Again, the response letter that I have tells you how I'm going to address them all, but that is basically the stormwater update that we have. I don't know if Ed has anything that he wants to come up and say.
Ed Weigel, Rue Associates, a licensed site professional. I just took a look at Beta's letter, and there were two comments that they had where they were seeking for some additional information. So I just wanted to say that we have revised our RAM plan, and we'll provide that to you in the next few days. I do want to incorporate the additional comments that Rob Smith had on two of the items in his letter here. Just to note that the first one was with respect to the septic system. Currently, we're not planning on excavating the septic system, but what we can do is in the RAM plan, we can include some language that says, should that changed, the septic system would be managed separately from everything else and handled off-site. Also, there was
Sorry, what do you mean by off-site handled?
If we need to dig up the septic system, we're
okay.
not going to bury it back on site. We're going to take it away.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. The other issue was with respect to basically keeping equipment clean during construction, and I think we can certainly add some details about procedures for making sure that equipment doesn't get excessively dirty or otherwise cross-contaminate areas where we think it's potentially contaminated from those areas where we don't think it's contaminated.
Okay.
So I don't know if the commission had some questions on that.
Yeah. John, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
Peter?
Rob is here tonight, if anyone
Oh,
does have any
thank you.
questions for him.
Thank you. Okay.
Right, Rob, you are there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. Actually, I should start with David. Do you have anything to add?
No, I don't. Again, I think ultimately we need a final letter from Rob, saying under each one of the issues resolved.
Yep.
So I think we can go ahead and start working on the draft order of conditions. But I think that the hearing should be kept open until we have the final versions of the SGMP and RAM plans, because one of the things I've incorporated into the order of conditions is that they're actually going to be part of the order of conditions.
Got it. Okay, and those are substantial pieces of work, and it's a 21-day clock.
Right.
So we want to make sure we have those.
Yes.
Okay, understood. Peter, anything?
First of all, thank you to the two LSPs for working together and helping us. And I just had one question, and Rob, it was sort of aimed for you, and I think you may have answered it. or David's comments addressed it, but I would just wanted, at some point, Rob, to hear from you that you were comfortable that your concerns had been fully addressed. I mean, I read through your letter you wrote, thank you for that, but I kind of wanted to, be sure that you, representing the town's interest, were comfortable that this will be protective of the public and all of our values. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, I think with those revisions, had sort of, there was maybe 9 comments, and we've closed most of those. I think we've made good progress. Provided just a few more follow-ups, and no, I do think that, following these last, few recommendations to add to that plan, I think that will be protective to the town and to the resource area.
Okay.
All right, and Carl, just one other quick thing, and apologies, because I never brought this up before, but I assume that our plan includes some provisions for avoiding soil being tracked out of the site by trucks down
That's
the
a
street.
standard order of conditions.
Yeah, so I assume that somebody has thought about that.
It's construction entrance.
Well, they don't
It's-
all,
it's-
they
it's
don't.
in everything we do.
They don't all work very well in town that have been built in the last year.
Okay.
So David, I'll defer to you in a standard condition, but, given how visible that site is, the last thing we want is to do all this good work and then have the public see a bunch of dirt on the road.
There's a couple of ways that can be handled. I think this project does require a SWIP, and that will probably be addressed in the SWIP.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I think Casey wants to say something.
Just a quick note to add to that too. The site is right across the street from where DPW exits every day, so they'll kind of be on top of us. So that should be addressed as part of the everyday construction.
Good point. Yeah, okay, great. Anything else, Peter?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bill?
At the last meeting, somebody mentioned an additional wells, the possibility of additional wells on the property adjacent to Barica Road. Has that been discussed? Has that been talked about? If they're required or necessary?
I think at the last meeting, we talked about Mass DEP and their involvement with this particular case, and in particular, one of the properties across the road at 279. I went on to their website this afternoon before this hearing tonight, and I took a look to see if DEP had entered any more information into any of the files, either ours or 3M or Electrometals. I didn't see anything additional. I know DEP has requested that 3M do a groundwater study, but as of this afternoon, I didn't see anything in DEP's electronic files indicating that had started.
So it's going to be their decision, right, not ours?
Yeah, correct. It's up to DEP.
Okay, that's fine. That's the only thing I had.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Bill.
Well, those are my thoughts. I was gonna suggest DEP too. I didn't know what you already did, the file work. Let's just move this thing forward. I'm all getting it going.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I think we made great progress, and as far as I'm concerned, it sounds like we need, based on our agent's recommendation, one more time to come back to our next meeting, but he's gonna work on some draft order conditions for us to review then, and I'm expecting we're gonna close this hearing when we come back next time.
Okay, and I expect to have a final RAM and soil and groundwater management plan that addresses all these comments, including the two that were lingering tonight, by the end of the week or early next week.
Good, yeah, because I think it's, we can just kind of, we made great progress, but I think we can probably close this one up at our next meeting, be done, and, again, a lot of good work to get us where we are now.
Yep. Okay,
So I do have a draft here, although it doesn't say draft on it, it should, but I've highlighted in yellow the conditions that I think are really special to this particular project. So in thinking about this myself and speaking to other people and speaking with Rob, so the first one is under design and pre-construction requirements. So I've inserted this condition number 26. Prior to the start of any site work, for example, earth disturbance, clearing of vegetation, etc., including demolition/removal of existing structures, the applicant shall submit to the Conservation Commission a plan call it the existing contamination plan, for use by the applicant's contractors, a contractor or contractors showing in layout and profile views the location, extent, and depth of detected or presumed soil contamination. The existing contamination plan shall also show groundwater elevations. So I think the motivation for this is, again, I've had a number of people say to me, and I think Rob agrees it's a legitimate concern. How does the contractor know, where the contaminated soil is, where the contaminated groundwater is? I think a plan is really needed that the contractor can use. The contractor, just by taking a relatively quick look at before they even start any digging.
Got it.
So they can know where the contaminated soil is, where the groundwater elevations are, and I think we sort of need that in 3D to the extent, the maximum extent possible. That's why I say, location, extent, and depth in both layout and profile views.
Okay.
Just to respond to that, David, the revised plan that I've pulled together includes a table of all the elevations of all the structures relative to where we think this potentially contaminated soil zone is, and indicating, both the absolute elevation based on the plan datum and approximate depth below grade. I've also included 2 figures, which are Howard Stein Hudson's 2 utility plans. And on those plans, what I've done is I've highlighted in yellow the structures and the lines that are going to likely impinge on this potentially contaminated soil horizon. So there is a very good plan, depicting where we think the contractor is going to encounter this material. And also there's a comprehensive set of 2 tables, one showing structures, the other one showing drain lines, indicating relative to absolute elevation where the contaminated zone is likely to be found.
Okay. I mean, that sounds good, but, contractors don't really look at tables very much. They look at plans.
That's why I have a plan.
So okay, that's what we need.
And it's a highlighted plan.
Okay.
But it is going to be important that they keep an eye on their depths, because that's the only way to find this stuff, is to keep track of depths.
Yeah, but which I'm sure they'll do, but they'll have to have something to, check that against, and it have to be something that they can look at and see easily while they're working out in the field.
And again, those are HSA's utility plans, so they're pretty comprehensive plans.
Okay.
Okay, David, you got more?
Yep. So we already talked about this a little bit. So under construction management, the soil and groundwater management plan and remedial abatement measure plan, SGMP and RAM plan, copies of which are attached here too as Exhibit A and Exhibit B. That's why we need the final copies, because they're actually going to be, attached as part of the order of conditions, are incorporated herein by reference to this order of conditions. Anywhere the SGMP and RAM plans and or RAM plan may conflict with other requirements, this order of conditions, this order supersedes. I can modify that language, that last sentence slightly to make it a little bit clearer. I mean, I really don't think there are going to be any places where they conflict, but just for the sake of thoroughness, have that in there. And then condition 33, we've talked a little bit about this already. Pursuant to the provisions of the Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53G, the Conservation Commission may hire an outside consultant or consultants at the applicant's expense to monitor compliance with this order of conditions. I think the applicant has already said a number of times he's willing to do that. But, still the commission has that legal authority.
And could I suggest, if the commission wants to go ahead with this, perhaps we can get a draft scope of work and figure out what's really required ahead of construction, so there's no last minute.
Well, I don't think we need that to close the hearing and issue the order of conditions.
I'm just saying going forward.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think again they're going to have a contractor on board, and we'll have to be talking to them before a scope can actually be drafted.
Fair enough.
So that's construction management. Now, moving down, you see invasive species management. Remember, this is an amended order of conditions, and in the original, there was a whole bunch of stuff about invasive species management that should stay in here. But anyway, so going down to perpetual conditions, I think some of this probably most of it's pretty general and can be applied to other projects with stormwater compliance, and I've incorporated them in a couple of the other ones we're talking about at night. Tonight. This one is not quite as general because, as you recall, infiltration has been eliminated. So there were a number of conditions that originally were in there that pertained to infiltration that I removed once infiltration was eliminated. So I can just read these out if you want me to. The long-term pollution prevention plan, stormwater management system operations and maintenance plan, LTPPP, and O&M plan respectively, in Appendix A of the supplemental data report, a copy of which is attached here too as Exhibit D. Again, that's why I wanted the final version of the LTPPP and O&M plans to actually, again, make a part of the order of conditions are incorporated here by reference to this order of conditions. Again, anywhere the LTPP and O&M plan may conflict with explicit requirements on pages 10A to 10H, this order of conditions, the explicit requirements supersede.
David, do you need to read through the whole thing?
That's up to you.
I'm not sure. I don't.
No. I don't
we're
need to.
okay.
What I was planning to do was then, continue the hearing tonight. I'll email out this draft
That'd
to
be great.
commission members, and then you can come back with comments.
And you've got the key ones highlighted in yellow.
Yes, yes.
Others are fairly standard.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Unless somebody objects, I think it might be good to also make sure we get that to
Yep.
the applicant too,
Yes.
so they can look
Yes.
it over as well.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
that'll help us, be in a better
Perfect.
position to close the next meeting.
Perfect. Yeah, and if you guys we get it from David and we see comments, send them to David only. Let him incorporate your comments, and then we'll get the final copy before the next meeting. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And we need David to give us our comments or anyone's comments. How much time do you need so that we can
have
close the next
3
meeting?
weeks before our next.
Yeah, we
meeting.
have 3 weeks. It would be nice if you could, at the very latest, a week in advance, because once the hearing is closed, we still have 21 days to actually
Yeah.
get the final order out.
Right.
So I
Okay.
would say, if possible, no less than a week.
I just want to give you plenty of time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's imperative for you guys to get all your information
Yep.
to him so that we can wrap things up.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then, of course, they need to get us the additional information, the final
right.
versions of the two.
Okay.
plans. So I think that's pretty much everything for this particular.
So to summarize here, the actions for the next meeting, obviously, is in the meantime, we'll have this OC cycle, review cycle, and we got to get these plans from Ed and from Casey. What else are the deliverables that we need? What else are we looking for? Is there anything else that we're looking for?
We're gonna get the clean letters from the peer review based on the revised
Right,
submittals.
thank you.
Well, so this plan, but I'm calling these this contamination plan, that says prior to the start of any site work. So, but it sounds like you can get me something much sooner than that.
Yeah, and we can run by you what we have
Okay.
now, and we can discuss if there's any changes you want to that, but if it's prior to construction, we can certainly finalize it way ahead of that, but yeah.
Okay.
I'd say we should start working on that sooner than later, so we can discuss with you
Okay.
what we have.
Sounds good.
So,
Carl, there's one other technical issue I hate to throw it on the table. We talked about this before, and perhaps fellow commissioners can think about this. And Casey, I don't know if you tackled this issue in your revised O&M plan, but at least in my mind, there's this question about PFAS on the site. I know we're all tired of talking about that, but basically what we're doing is running pipes through contaminated groundwater, I think, although you might want to correct me, maybe they're not really in the groundwater. Maybe that's the question. But the broader question is, if there's leaks in any of the stormwater collection pipes, and if those pipes are in PFAS contaminated groundwater, my question is, does the commission want to think about what happens if the piping system creates a direct pathway for contaminated groundwater that would normally percolate through the site, but under this condition, under leaking pipe scenario, leaking manhole,
Accelerating it.
it could be going straight through the system and turning into a direct discharge to a zone 2.
Okay.
And we could talk about that during permit conditions, a simple sampling or tightness testing, or Rob Smith and Ed probably have some suggestions. But rather than discuss it, we could keep that on the table during the permit conditions.
I mean, during the course of this hearing over the past, almost a year, I guess, I mean, it has been mentioned a number of times, a potential condition to require sampling, at the discharge outlets.
Yeah, and I think.
Is that something
Yeah,
that you
yes,
still
and
want?
I think it depends on how the commission feels about that and how important that is. But again, the risk is pretty high if you're creating a potential direct pathway. So we can talk about that as we go forward.
But I think if that's something you want, I mean, you can certainly put that in, your comments. I think when the like the focal points, I think you're probably referring to the focal points, right?
Yeah, and Rob Smith had some comments about this a couple of months ago. Let's not get into it now, but I think we've got some other expertise for ideas.
Well, then I'll leave it up to you, how much you want to press this.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to whittle it down to what we
No,
have left.
let's not do it now. I just want to put that on the table so people are not surprised.
But that's the type of thing. Let's get that input into our agent.
Yep.
And that way, and then our agent's gonna be able to, share everything with the applicant here. We can kind of get this all resolved, and then we're in position to close.
Yeah, that input has happened a number of times, Chris, and there's been no
I think it's
action.
great that you bring up these questions, but I think it should be up to the applicant to remedy them without us getting involved in discussing them. We bring them up, great points,
The applicant has been asked.
and nothing.
Well, you're revising the O&M plan, so you have a chance to put something in it.
Well, I guess there's a question as to what exactly would we test for at the outfalls, because it would be difficult to separate out if we're testing after a rainfall. Rain can contain PFAS in itself. So if we're testing and everything's testing positive, we don't know that that's coming from leaching groundwater or if that's just coming from the rain that fell on the site.
Well, that's simple. If it's background, then it's not a concern. Well, I mean, it's a concern, but not for this project.
Right, and that would be, I guess, a question better suited for Ed and Rob, but to me, I don't know how to differentiate the two between testing.
I don't think you have to.
Okay.
The question is the stormwater system creating a direct pathway of PFAS? And if it's all mashed together in a background issue and you can't separate the two, I don't want to turn it into a science project.
Okay, let's, Ed, do you have a quick response here?
Yeah, I just want to quickly respond to that. Most of the stormwater infrastructure is above the high water table, but, some of it is. I think, to the extent you have groundwater with PFAS in it leaking into the stormwater system and then getting into the brook, isn't really that what we want, because that takes the PFAS out of the groundwater and puts it into the surface water where it then can run out the river and into the Boston Harbor?
No, because it all infiltrates in the wetlands. You know that.
Well, it's already in the ground already. So if it's in the ground and it migrates through the ground, or it comes up into the stream and then goes back into the ground, isn't that essentially the same?
Yeah, and I think we weren't going to discuss it now, but there is a lot of things that you can do. You could do some simple tightness testing of the system after you build it. You could do some simple grab samples of the discharge of the stormwater system during a storm with a background sample of rain, so you don't create a problem for yourselves. None of that cost very much money.
So I'll let the applicant look at a couple of options. I think you hear Peter's concern, and we can talk about that at our next session. So I think we've got draft OOC from David. We'll review that, the final RAM and soil and groundwater management plan from Ed, and the letters from the peer reviews, letters from the peer reviews, the existing contamination plan draft. So I think, anything else? Am I missing anything?
Don't believe so.
Okay. So take a motion to continue the hearing
I
for,
move that we continue this
270.
hearing till May 14.
okay, motion from Chris, second from John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mark, yeah, aye, okay. Thanks very much, appreciate it. Next one, we are at, this is a NOI, this is continued from our last meeting, Z&K Holdings LP, 191 Chelmsford Street. We have a familiar face representing the applicant. Frequent flyer.
All right, so the last time we were here, we had some brief discussions about the O&M plan. What we had was we had submitted it shortly before the meeting. There was not enough time for the commission to review it ahead of that meeting. So we have continued to today. We did receive additional input last Friday, to which I have, with that additional input, we set up a meeting with David, which happened this afternoon. We met with David, we discussed how we would adjust the long-term pollution prevention plan and the O&M plan to address the comments that Peter had. I believe all but two of them we did address, and I can go through why I didn't address the other two if you'd like. The first of which being, one request was that we stake out the 50-foot buffer zone from the wetland and call out that no snow may be stored beyond that 50-foot. The majority of the 50-foot is behind the guardrail that goes around the rear of the site. So what I did was I added in the long-term pollution prevention plan that there is no snow storage to be had beyond that guardrail. So some of that guardrail is further than 50 feet. But in order to get to the 50-foot, you basically have to go up over the guardrail and then dump the snow, which isn't really realistic. So what we said was just don't store it beyond that guardrail. And that should take care of that concern as well. And then we left in the language, also do not store within the 50-foot. So it's basically a catch-all for both. And then the second one was a concern about if the subsurface system is not draining, the O&M plan calls for it to be dewatered for review to check what it is. And that dewatering is basically a pump, and then you pump it through the outlet pipe so that we can get the system down to its bones and see what's wrong with it. There was a comment from Peter that we do not want to discharge it directly to the wetland. The standard practice of it would be to discharge it. It's already clean water. It's fully treated, ready for infiltration. So what we want to do is we want to get that water out of the system so that we can review it. So we'd like to remain the ability to do that and discharge that water. It's clean water, fully treated, ready for infiltration. So the water would be going to the aquifer in one way or another. If it were to be infiltrating as it should be. So what we want to do is be able to get rid of that water so we can actually review the system. Every other comment we took care of, and I submitted a revised plan to David this afternoon.
Okay.
Oh, I will also say another request we had leaving the last meeting was to meet with the water district. I did meet with the water district. I met with Brendan this afternoon. And I also emailed along to David email correspondence that he does not, as long as the site is tied into town sewer, their concerns are addressed. So there's that.
Okay. We got that late, I saw. You sent it out to us late. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So, I don't know, Peter, do you want to, I mean, this is going to be continued anyway, I think. So, do you want to take some time to review the revisions Casey has made?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty close. I have a couple of questions. I think the biggest one is the recent letter from Chelmsford Water District. I don't know if you've had a chance to speak with the district, but...
No, not yet.
And Casey, I saw the correspondence. You were trying to seek some clarification, but as I understand the letter or email from Chelmsford Waters, they were concerned that all wastewater would be contained. Did you get a clarification of that?
So actually it was... that my email was intended to be a summary of what we discussed in person this afternoon. I asked him if we could put it in writing just so I would be able to submit it. He said if it wasn't tied into sewer, then they would have concerns. because the entire facility and all wastewater is tied into sewer, then his concerns are addressed. So I asked for that clarification, and then he responded with, I think, quote, correct, that would be the main concern. So my clarification line was basically, can you confirm that your concern is to ensure that the site is tied into sewer? And his was correct.
Right, but I guess, David, maybe you can help us after the meeting here. My question is, does Chelmsford Water District realize that the storm drains at the end of the car wash, and I presume there's some at the beginning of the car wash, I haven't looked at that, under certain busy conditions, there could be some track out of
I discussed that
car
with him
wash
today.
chemicals that go into that storm drain, so it's not accurate to say all wastewater from the site goes to the sewer.
Well,
The way I would express it is almost all of it. There is that question of the trace amount of chemicals, and my question is whether the water district understands that and they're willing to accept that risk, in which case we should be fine. So that's really the.
So
does
we
make
had that
sense?
discussion, and he asked about that catch basin, and the discussion was essentially that
Okay.
the very final rinse of it was clean water, and he said, then I don't have any further
Comfortable with
concerns.
that. I talked to him about that.
Okay.
I guess the question I had, were they gonna be in the loop on an O and M?
So, yep, so one of the conditions that he requested that I forwarded in my email was that they just asked that a condition of the approval be that the O&M get submitted to the water district as well.
Okay.
Board of Health and Water?
I don't think he asked for Board of Health,
No,
he asked
wouldn't.
specifically just for
I
water.
guess I'm asking it to Board of Health. Just a packet, whatever. You know,
I-
what would be the-
Yeah, I mean, my anticipation is that as part of our Board of Health processes, they will also be submitted the operation and maintenance plan, but we can certainly make it a condition of approval that we submit it to the Board of Health as well.
I'd like to see.
Yeah, and I think you raised the other point. I don't know if we would make it a condition of our work or not, but the stormwater system is protective of the aquifer as long as you don't have a chemical spill in the parking lot that washes into the storm drain. And the Department of Health, as you guys know, has a regulation that I looked at and I thought it was pretty good about not spilling stuff.
Right.
So we should, rely on that reg, because that's not our reg. But that is a critical part of keeping the stuff out of the groundwater, which is our job. So I don't know if we issue a permit that says contingent on Board of Health reviewing that, but, that's more speaks to the town internal process.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm not quite sure here. Are we recommending that we continue this? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm going to make a motion that we close tonight's hearing.
I'm
I've got the
seconding it.
information that I've
Yeah,
got.
It's kind
yeah.
of, it's kind of what I thought. I thought we were going. David?
I thought we were so close
Yeah,
last
time,
meeting.
yeah.
I'm personally okay with that.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
And then the same model, permit conditions, and we all comment?
yep.
Well, yeah, but then I would prefer the hearing be kept open. Because then, if you close it tonight, we won't be meeting again until the deadline for
Well, and of
issuing.
course, there is an O&M plan revision that you said you'd aiming for May 1st, Casey?
No, that's 270. This
Oh, I
one I
got
just
these mixed up
submitted.
again, don't I?
This one I submitted today.
I can't keep this straight.
It's okay.
Can you guys?
I-
Or is it just me?
It's tough, Peter.
Well, so Carl, what's your point? I
that's-
would like an
that's-
opportunity to look at the permit conditions. I don't want to make it a big deal, but I would like to read them. Why can't we do
Yeah,
that?
and to David's point, we have a 21-day clock, and our next meeting is until 21
Right.
days. So
So
if we were to
It
close the
really
hearing
needs, it
now,
really needs to be kept open if
Yeah.
you want to review.
then I think we need to keep it open until, but it can be, I think it can be a very quick,
Well, I'm going to make my motion, put it to a vote, because this has gone on for so long.
This is,
And, we still want, our agent will come up with conditions for us to vote on at our next meeting, and we'll have to vote that night.
Well, I'm confused. Are we still giving comments to David to put into the conditions?
Well, David's saying no at this point. I mean, it's really, right, David?
Okay.
I can email a draft, and people can certainly email me their comments, but it starts to get a little bit tight, because, I have other things that I'm working on. And it's just much, much easier to not have the pressure of a statutory deadline,
Right.
There.
Right. Well, my attitude is we're pretty much done, but the conditions capture everything we've talked about the last few months. Seems logical to me to take a final look, not to create new issues, but to be sure the concerns we discussed already.
I think,
Are in.
as I told Casey this afternoon, if it's kept open for another 3 weeks, at that point, I can have it ready in just a couple of days probably. So it will be essentially, ready to go at that point.
So
But
from
but
that point
at the end of the day, it doesn't make a huge difference to me as if you're okay with me, drafting an order and then, you're going to be okay with that, with the draft.
So
You
let
have a
me,
motion and
let me,
a second.
well, I don't think you finished the motion, and we have a public comment. So why don't we go to public comment?
Laurie Myers, 7 Pine Hill Ave. Just a quick question. I know it was mentioned in the email that you had sent me, David, about the no liquids from a spill being in the dumpster. What about the materials used to clean up the liquids? Would those be stored in the dumpster or disposed in the dumpster?
David, do you have an answer, or should we ask Casey, or?
Well, you can ask Casey. I assume that'll be in the employee handbook, which there is an explicit
The
condition
email
on.
specifically says that no liquid. So if there's a spill, will the absorbent materials be disposed of in the dumpster?
Okay,
And,
why don't-
and then my concern last time was dumpsters are not waterproof.
Right, got it.
Can certainly put an explicit condition prohibiting that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would. That's an example of why I think we got to look at these conditions.
Well,
So-
right.
Just so we can get, Casey, could you just come up and officially nod on the record or something like that? I'm seeing you nod, but,
Yeah, so generally what's going to happen is if there's an internal spill, it's going to be washed into the sewer if able. Or you're going to use some kind of, I don't know what the correct term is, but like a material to absorb all of that liquid and solidify it. Once it is solidified and no longer liquid, it would then be disposed of properly, whether that's the dumpster, if that's allowed by federal regulation, or however the federal regulations would dictate that, and that would be as part of the employee handbook as well.
I think it's important to point out that some of the material data sheets talk about don't spill this stuff on pavement.
okay.
I mean, this is, I'm sorry, I don't want to go on a big tangent, but these are not benign chemicals.
Yeah.
We all think of it that way, but they're not. They're highly concentrated industrial chemicals with a bunch of stuff hazardous to humans, according to the data sheets.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, now I hear,
I'll make a motion that we close this public hearing.
okay, motion from Chris, second from Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. You voted yes?
Yeah, we
Okay,
can make it
okay,
work.
All right, 5-1. Yeah,
Opposed?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. So motion passes. We'll close the hearing. Any other motion here?
I don't think we need another motion, right, David?
You have to make a motion and issue the order of conditions. Well, no, well,
We'll do
Yeah,
that
but-
at our next meeting.
yeah, you could. I mean, that's right at the deadline. It would be better to
Well, that's the problem.
approve that motion. Agreed.
So wait a minute. Make sure we all understand this, because our next meeting is not a public
3
hearing.
weeks.
No, 3 weeks. I'm sorry, it is.
Our
Yeah.
next hearing meeting is 3
Yeah.
weeks.
So that
I was saying that.
So what we're maybe not thinking about is the 21-day rule. We have to issue the conditions in 21 days.
We can do it then.
Unless the applicant agrees to a waiver,
Yeah, we can make it
in
work.
writing.
Okay.
Well, but it would have to be, at the latest, it would have to be issued on the 21st. It would have to be issued before our next.
Right. And was your concern your workload or us getting back to you?
A little bit of both. I mean, if I get comments, then I have questions, and then there's a lot of back and forth with the commission member or members. Again, that adds time. I think maybe if tomorrow, members just send me their their recommendations for conditions like the one we just talked about, maybe an explicit prohibition against, putting any, cleanup materials in the dumpster. That makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, Chris, I think the challenge is scooping up all of these little things that we've talked about the last 6 months, like the concern about stuff in the dumpster. Off the top of my head, I don't know how many of those little concerns there are, but there was one.
I think we can make it work.
Okay.
Okay.
It'd be as simple as having the person that cleans up the company take the material with them.
Yeah, so let's ask
as
David,
opposed to
yeah,
using a dumpster.
Yeah, but you want it in the permit.
but we're not gonna talk about the details. Yeah, it's gotta be in the permit. So David, you've shared a draft. We just need to get comments back to you pronto.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
that's the direction to the commission. Get comments to David this week latest, if not tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that he has a chance to get this done.
And just keeping in mind, there won't be another opportunity to discuss this at a meeting.
Right.
Before it has to be issued.
Okay.
And forgive me, David, you shared the draft permit already?
I haven't sent it out.
Oh, okay.
I have it up on the
Okay,
screen, but I'll do that.
Thank you.
Okay. So, do we take a motion?
We're good.
We're good
I
for
think
now.
we're
I mean, the
good.
hearing's closed.
Well, but you also have to vote to issue an order of conditions, and that has to be tonight.
Really?
Yeah.
So we could just close the hearing and then we had 21 days to.
But yes, there is, but the 21 days doesn't fall within before the next meeting.
Oh, the 14th?
Right, yes.
All right, then I make a motion that we issue an order of conditions, subject to its special conditions that our agent's going to be drafting up.
Motion from Chris,
Yeah.
second from
Second.
John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you, Casey.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for working through that. Okay.
Thank you.
Good night,
Night.
Casey. Thank you. Next one, we are at notice of intent, continued from our last meeting. This is 93 Brick Hill Road. And we have Brian and crew are here. So again, we're doing well here time-wise. It's 8:30, so we are looking at issues. We're reviewing the draft special conditions. David, you were also drafting the order of conditions on this
Yes.
one.
Yes.
I don't think we've seen that yet, have we?
No.
Okay.
I think, again, assuming, the overlap with the stormwater requirements, the overlap with this and the other two, I think most of these conditions deal with the turtle nesting management area. And also, there's a couple regarding snow storage. So we can review those. So I think there shouldn't be any surprises here. So condition 30, the nesting management area shall be constructed during the initial build-out phase of the project. Again, I think we've already talked about that, and
Yep.
that's not a problem. And then related, prior to the start of any site work, the wildlife biologist overseeing construction of the NMA shall work with the applicant's contractor to prepare and submit to the conservation agent for review a detailed chronological works sequence for construction of the nesting management area, which really implies there that it protects, the nesting management area. I know that a turtle protection plan has already been submitted, and that will be referenced in this as well. Oh yes, next one is the turtle protection plan, a copy of which is attached hereto as Exhibit A, is incorporated herein by reference to this order of conditions. Then again, under construction management. This is all pretty much standard. But getting down to perpetual conditions, again, this is pretty much standard. Under the turtle nesting management area, again, the certificate of compliance shall not be issued prior to the end of year 5 of the initial 5-year period for annual evaluations of existing site conditions within the NMA. See note 6 on sheet 1 of the turtle habitat mitigation plan, and the wetland scientist overseeing treatment and monitoring certifies in writing. Yeah, no, that should not be there. That last sentence is that's an error. I'll take that out.
So you got to do a little more editing.
Yeah, I got to do a little bit more editing. The nesting management area shall be managed as such in perpetuity. So that's just what it says. After the end of year 5 of the initial 5-year period for annual evaluations of existing site conditions with the NMA, reporting of management activities in the NMA shall be done on an annual basis by the end of the calendar.
I'm sorry, who are the reports go to? Is it to you, the agent?
Yes, that.
Whatever you're called in 100 years? Okay.
And then we had this one as well, that said, proposed use of non-organic herbicides in the NMA shall require prior approval by the Conservation Commission as part of an invasive management plan for the NMA. And then here, next one is Conservation Commission and its agents may, with reasonable notice and at the Commission's own financial expense, enter the nesting management area for purposes including, but not limited to, monitoring nesting activity, documenting species present, and evaluating habitat management. So I think that's something the Commission should seriously consider. Just as a record of, the long-term success of the nesting management area.
Yeah.
Especially if the Commission wants to try that at another location, on another project.
Okay.
So that's that one. And then there was with regard to the snow storage. I think this actually is in the plans. A full build out signs, at least. I just left. I wasn't exactly sure of the dimensions here. Maybe Brian, you can make a suggestion. Signs at least X by Y displaying snow storage on pavement only shall be posted in the 4 locations shown on sheet 4 of the plan. So, I guess implied in this condition is that snow storage will be allowed only on pavement only, and I don't think that's what's currently being proposed, right?
So that's, for the record, Brian Gaudreau with Hancock Associates. So for the snow storage area behind the building, it is on pavement only. In areas outside of buffer zone towards the front of the property, they are in landscaped areas. And in terms of sign sizing, 11 by 17, I would say no bigger than that, and likely we could probably do something smaller because it would be indicating snow storage, with arrows essentially.
But it's something that the contractors will have to be able to read while
Correct.
they're actually doing the plowing, right? I mean, I think 11 by 17 is large enough to be able to read from the trucks. What do members?
Sounds reasonable.
Okay. I will.
Yeah.
I will put that on the. I'll insert those dimensions into the.
Okay, so David, you're going to get this. Is there anything on there that we saw so far that we're okay with, objecting to? But we still want to look at this, but you're making a proposal here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's sort of the same question. Keep the hearing open,
Yep.
Or not. Again, there's going to be the same statutory issues, with regard to the 21 days.
Yeah, we got, usually we're 2 weeks between meetings. This time we happen to be 3 weeks between, so made it a little tighter.
Yeah, which is why I think we've already put them in a little bit of a bind with the other one. I don't know that I want to do that for 2 of them. Just,
It would
if it
be a
was 2
huge
weeks,
help.
I'd be a little more like, yeah, okay.
It
But
would
we
be a
have
huge
this-
help to me to keep this open.
It's not that often we have this many big
That's
projects
right.
come at the same
That's right.
time.
We
Which
kind of
puts-
get the crunch all kind of came down on us.
And then we have this stretch of time, so.
And then it all comes down to him.
I know.
But I think we're right here on this.
Yeah, I'm
it's
not
just-
hearing any, contentious comments on this one.
Was there, I have a note here also on Water District. Was there a meeting with Brandon on this one as well?
Not
Or do I
that
have
I'm
that mixed
aware
up?
I think Brandon and Lisa were both out in the sidewalk with us, if I remember correctly.
So John Higgins Environmental, for the record. Yeah, we met with Brandon, and he issued a letter from the Water District that folks should have a copy of. Went to the Board of Health, and we had a Board of Health meeting.
I don't think I saw that.
I do have a copy. We can take one out for you now if you want.
How far
think so.
back was that?
No, it wasn't.
Submitted from the
A
applicant.
couple of weeks ago or so. It was the
Okay.
last,
No, I'm-
This
before
was
the
just a
board,
while
last
ago.
Board of Health meeting.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was before the last meeting. It just hadn't, with here, but it just hadn't been given to you yet.
Well, but I guess I have a note here that you were gonna meet with Brandon on this.
Yeah, I was going to put that in my report.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So
Okay.
you want a letter from the applicant, or you want a letter from both, from the water
Well, it's
district?
from Brandon.
Yeah.
And we actually, it's signed by Ender.
Yeah, well, my recollection, which may not be accurate, so, is, you did a site walk with the water district, and they wrote a memo. Then after that, I think a member of the public or some other entity or one of us raised the question, will the stormwater infiltration change the hydrology? And I know we had some discussion. I thought that the planning board then, do I have these mixed up? I thought the planning board then asked for a peer review
I
to
believe so.
answer that
yes.
question.
Yes, isn't
So
that right?
if I could,
So,
so.
if I
oh,
could just
sorry.
finish, I'm sorry,
Sorry.
no, shut up. So my thought was, my question was, did Chelmsford Water understand that there was that question? And supposedly that question is being resolved with a peer review. So I don't know if that means it's our job to be sure Chelmsford Water is up to date, or if that's planning board's job. But
So if I could.
clarified if I got something wrong there.
All right, so the timing is I had a meeting with Brandon and Lisa, and they, we met, we talked, they confirmed that it was connected to town sewer, which is important. And they issued a letter, like the following week, but that was signed by Ender, returned to Brandon for signature prior to the last planning board meeting, the last Conservation Commission meeting we had. It just hadn't been received by the planning board, and I think David actually continued the meeting in order to receive that letter, although it was an internal town letter. So, and then the following week, or whatever it was, we met with the planning board. So this is after Brandon and Lisa, our field meeting, and the issuance of a letter by the Water District and signed by both Ender and Brandon, as just making sure that we were connected to town sewer and.
Right, no, I got that part, but I guess for this board, if it's correct that the planning board is taking a fresh look at this, to me, that's one town entity taking a hard look at it, and we don't need to do that. Is that the right perspective?
I just wanted to add that it was, the letter from Brandon preceded the planning board meeting.
Right.
Okay, so it wasn't like they didn't.
Oh, yeah,
They
right.
wanted to reflect on Brandon before or something.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I didn't.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
no, you
no.
added that's
no,
the
I didn't mean to
timeline
imply
part.
that. I'm sorry.
No, that's it.
Did I imply that? I'm sorry.
No, you said, yeah, that they hadn't been issued yet, so, but it had been.
Yeah, but the point is, there's another step in aquifer protection, I believe, is the responsibility of the planning board when they take this up
Yeah.
at their next meeting. So, I mean, we don't want to do a redundant
Right.
thing.
Okay, so. What are we looking at?
So I think we're looking to continue this one to our next meeting on May 14th, and then we'll be able to close the hearing on May 14th and be able to vote on an order of conditions that night and wrap it all up. I think that's what
I
we
think
should
we're in
do.
good shape for that.
Yeah.
So if I could, the only request, I believe, is if we could have a copy of the draft order. I think Rich had asked for that earlier today or yesterday.
Yes, sorry, I didn't have a chance to get back to him.
Okay.
But I'll certainly email that to
Perfect. Thank you.
you and him as well.
So we will
We're gonna
get a
continue this
copy
to
of
our
it,
next meeting.
and you'll get a
have to vote or
copy to the
anything?
applicant.
We have to vote, yeah, he's gonna put it to a vote.
Yeah. Okay.
So I made the motion, who's the second?
Mark, yeah, Chris made the motion to continue to the
May 14th.
14th of May. Mark seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great.
That was good.
Thank you all.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it. We're gonna get there. We are gonna get there. And now we have.
Working hard.
Mass Electric. Is it actually Mass Electric or is it National Grid? Is that-
National Grid.
The same company.
Yeah, okay.
National Grid goes by a number of aliases.
Okay, 15 Concord Road.
That's
This is
electric's old.
continued from April 9th. We have Keelan Konsowitz, VHB, is representing the applicant. We were awaiting the peer review.
Yes, and I did this afternoon, I did get a proposal from CEI, which I apologize, I just did not have a chance to send out to the commission. But I will.
Looked at it?
What's that?
Is it a reasonable?
Yes, I think it is.
So going back on this one, this is where the scope of this would be reviewing the wetland BVW boundary performance standard for the resources.
So here it is up on the screen. CEI proposes to provide the following peer review services: review of the notice of intent application, all supporting materials submitted for the site, review the GIS permitting plan submitted with the NOI prepared by VHB and permitting package plan set dated January 18th, 2024. Site visit, CEI will conduct one visit to the site to review conditions in comparison to the site plans referenced above and to review the wetland delineation presented in the NOI. CEI assumes the applicant will have the wetland boundary marked with numbered flagging that corresponds to the numbering shown on the above referenced site plan. CEI assumes that the applicant's wetland consultant will be present at the site visit to discuss and confirm any required changes to the wetland boundary if necessary. These changes will be marked at the site with new wetland flagging for later field location and associated revisions to the NOI plans. Following the applicant's submittal of a revised plan showing the updated wetland boundary, CEI will provide a review of the plan for concurrence with the field revisions and provide follow-up needed by phone and our email communications with the Conservation Commission and its agent. Thought there would be something in there about compliance with the performance standards. It looks to me like all they've included in there is review of the wetland delineation.
Well, it does talk about compliance with our wetlands, the Wetlands Act and the bylaw. Down there in the letter.
Which includes the performance standards, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Maybe
So,
just clarify
right-
it.
Right down, do you see that, David? Right below there?
Below the
Yeah, a little
visit,
bit further down.
below the visit part, yeah, the
Letter report. A letter report which describes their findings regarding the NOI's conformance
Okay,
with Mass
okay,
Wetlands.
sorry.
Protection
I
Act,
just
town bylaw.
didn't read far enough.
It's okay, I mean,
Okay, so I think, I think this is the right scope.
yeah.
Personally.
Let's go. Oh.
Do you need to make it clear that you're looking for a look at the performance standards, or do you think that's strong enough language as written?
I think it's.
I just hate to not
I
have it.
I can just send an email
Yeah.
to Bob Hartley, CEI, just saying, yeah, under the letter report, that just confirming that includes, you know.
Okay.
Should we close
So-
the discussion on this one?
So, yeah, I was gonna say, we should take a vote on whether or not we think we should even do a peer review. That's the first question, and then is this peer review adequate, the scope? So the first question would be, do we wanna do that?
I'll just do a quick motion. I'm going to make a motion that we authorize our agent to proceed with sending, get a peer review for us. And I would just kind of combine based on this proposal that he's presented to us.
Second.
Okay, motion from Chris, second from Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. John's in. John, did I, yeah? okay.
Yes,
All
he
right.
did. He enthusiastically put his hand up. Very
All right,
enthusiastic.
unanimous. Okay, so are they even on the call?
Bridget, are you there?
Hi, yes, I'm here. This is Bridget Hillenberg from VHB. I believe Kellen was at the last meeting, but I'm here on behalf of the applicants.
So I did forward you the scope. Do you have any concerns with it?
Not on my end that we were able to review, but Tim Sullivan with Massachusetts Electric Company is here as well. If Tim, you want to ask anything at all?
Hi, Tim Sullivan with National Grid. I was in the last hearing as well. This sounds like what we discussed for a scope at that time, so I don't have any objection with moving forward.
Okay, all right, I think it'll probably be a few weeks before we get the review, I would think. You'll engage them?
Yeah, maybe by the next meeting, if, since that's 3 weeks away, obviously I'll have to get them the signed proposal.
Just trying to not stack things up too much here.
Right. So,
and knowing this project is later in the year, if I remember their schedule, I'm just wondering if making it like May 28th would make it, or whatever the meeting after the 14th.
Okay. I'm just as happy with that.
Yeah, I just trying not to stack things up. The 28th would be the next, the meeting. I suggest we go for that. Just a little more breathing room.
That's fine.
That's okay.
I make a motion then that we continue to May 28th.
Second.
Assuming that's okay with the applicant? We get a,
They look okay.
yeah, they're not.
He's nodding.
He's sort of nodding.
I don't see any objections.
Okay, all right. Motion from Chris, second from Bill. All in favor to continue to the 28th of
Aye.
May?
Aye.
Okay. So moved. Thank you very much.
Unanimous.
We'll have a peer review. Hopefully we get that report by then, and hopefully we can close out at that time. That should go well. Okay. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, is there anything else on? Yeah, we continue this, so that was it. Okay. So next thing is the discussion on the Select Board's request for the Conservation Commission comments on the proposed LIP at 243 River Neck Road. So we talked about this briefly last meeting, but this was very late in the evening. I just want to preface this by saying that David sent a good letter to the Select Board. I'm okay with kind of just us, if you saw that or reviewed it, just underscoring that that's what we voted on back then. We twice denied the application. There were lots of back and forth, but to me, at least, when I read through this, that the underlying issues of this site being used for for any kind of a development it hasn't changed. It's if not, it's more precious in that it's priority habitat. It's natural heritage, critical natural landscape, core habitat. So all of those things, nothing's changed from our point of view.
Right.
We denied it 20 years ago, I think it was, twice. I don't really want to get into the, it was overridden in the state and all that. That our position then was that, and one or two of us might have been on the commission at that time. I think you were, Bill. Chris might have been
I think I was
playing
on
with
planning board then.
Yeah, that was
on
your.
planning board.
That was when you defected.
Defected the planning board for 6 years, yeah.
So, I know we asked Ruth also to provide just a little bit of history on that, but I'm.
That was the main point implicit in my comment was, the commission denied it twice. Why would the commission approve it?
It's kind of like, what's changed?
Yes,
You know what I
right.
mean? It's like,
Yeah, so I did ask both Paul and Pat Wojcik, who's the chair of the select board, what they were looking for from us, and they were just saying if we had any concerns with this, and I would say, yes, we do. We did then, and, I don't think anything's changed in that scope. It was not something we were in favor of as a commission, and I'm looking for comment from the rest of the commission
well,
here.
I'd like to hear from Ruth.
But maybe, Ruth, do you want to just provide a
came in,
little?
so-
I think, were you on the commission at that time?
You were, right, Ruth?
I wrote the decision for
There
the
you go.
denial, so.
So,
yeah.
just for the record.
2 decisions.
Ruth Luna, 10 Carter Drive. The commission denied it twice, 2005, 2006, both times insufficient information in sufficient time for reviewing. And the first time there was a concern over the floodplain because FEMA was changing it. The applicant then went with the FEMA value for the second time. Both times there was concern over infiltration, the lack of hydrogeo study, which the applicant the second time admitted they didn't want to do it because it could significantly change their project. There was concern about wildlife habitat. There was concern about the clearing of the trees that were making the wetland be fully shaded to now be in full sun and how that would change it. The current ORAD is 22 years old. And at the time when I was a commissioner, I noticed there was a couple of areas that appeared to be missed in the BVW line. Since then, I have found old records that show that there looks to be 2 isolated wetlands on this site that were missed in that ORAD, so those would need to be checked. And so I would really recommend, given that it looks like there are things that were missed, that you get someone who's expert in soils when you're doing BVW, when you're confirming the wetlands for this site as well as for the stormwater. Because the other thing I saw in going through old files was when someone tried, the current landowner actually, tried to make it be a 3-house lot. There was actually a lawsuit between the planning board and the ZBA.
I remember that.
Yes. And it was the planning board said it's only a 2-lot site. The area had been excavated for $495. There was such deep excavation that they intercepted groundwater. The applicant said that they basically took away good soils. They left behind large deposits of material unsuitable for septic, and that there's ledge on the site. And so none of those go with infiltration. And then the heritage, the conservation management permit, has been renewed through 2026. They have not yet finalized the CR, which should be for 6.66 acres, and is not shown on their plans. They don't show the Zone 1 on their plans, and if the site gets divided, any review by Heritage would encompass the whole site. And then from what was said in the select board hearing and what we've seen in the files, we would also recommend that there be 21E testing on the site for contamination, especially since you're proposing infiltration next to Zone 1.
Okay.
So do you have any questions?
One quick question, Ruth. I read briefly what you sent out. Thank you for that. Are you saying that there were some ponds there?
Yeah.
And are they gone and now it's?
Well,
how does that relate
they were
to the
labeled,
wetlands?
so they're labeled the same way that when we were doing the swamp thing from the Riverneck site, the warehouse site. So those in 1980s, 1987, I think it was, the town had the town mapped for the sewer project. And at that point, they were doing more of a overview focusing on waterways. So if there was an error, they missed a wetland, they didn't over-label a wetland. So there were 2 areas on this site labeled ponds on those plans, and that's one of the ones I sent out. And if you look at the BVW elevation nearby, you'll see that this goes much lower than that. So it would suggest that you will have intercepted groundwater. And so that those would be they need to be looked at for being isolated wetlands.
But they're the same. The 2 ponds are the same as the 2 wetlands you mentioned at the beginning of
The
your
2
comments.
things that I think are missing, and the ORAD plan I sent shows where you see the bold 106 lines. You can see where those excavated areas are because it goes lower there. And there are houses currently situated over those.
Okay, but it's not a case of a pond or a wetland having been filled.
It's
just-
currently based, if they would still be there in that state, yeah.
Thank you.
So our objective here is I would like to have you guys authorize me as the chair to send a confirmation letter basically supporting David's previous letter, because when he sent it, we hadn't discussed it. That's my only thing. The select board is going to, it's a follow-up meeting in 2 weeks, I think it is their meeting that the applicant that's looking for this endorsement of the select board. And so what we would be saying is we do not support an endorsement of this project. And so I'm looking to maybe have a motion to support me writing a supporting letter, not endorsing it.
Non-supporting letter, perhaps.
A supporting letter to not endorse the project, if that makes sense.
Well, if anything, the site has got more sensitive than it was back then.
100% agree. It's more precious in that there's less property like that in town.
So I move that we authorize our chairman to follow up with the agent's letter and just confirm that the commission supports the letter that the agent had sent over indicating that we had a number of concerns related to the site and that we, at this point in time, do not support development on that land.
Okay. Motion from Chris.
Second.
Second from Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Ruth, thanks very much. Appreciate your input.
Thank you, Ruth.
David, thanks for your initial letter. And, you know, I went on the GIS and looked and just did the layers. It's like, it's insane.
It's pretty clear cut.
It's like,
Pretty clear
this is
cut.
not the place to be doing a development, in my opinion, but. Okay, very good. We are doing very well. So that's, I will write a letter. I'll send it to you guys as well, but just as an FYI, but I'll send it to the chair of the select board. Okay, continual business, an update on the open space and rec plan. So we did have a kickoff meeting a week ago tonight, I think it was. And it was well attended. We had one person missing, and I will tell you, in the meantime, that person dropped out. That was Max Jordan. He had a conflict that he was not able to reconcile with our meeting. So, but right now, I'm feeling pretty good. Like we have a good crew. I think the work that's in front of us is pretty well defined, where we have an existing plan. So I think we're in good shape. We'll keep going. Max was offering to help on the background. He just said, I can't make Tuesday nights. So he's officially dropped off, but I think we'll be okay going forward.
And I just comment, I thought our NIMCOG lead person did a good job moving along,
Kept
keeping
us
us
on track.
focused.
Yeah, it was good.
That's
It was
helpful.
Yep. Next thing on our agenda is the 255 Princeton Street update. David,
Well, there was Willis Drive.
Willis Drive.
Willis Drive.
Willis Drive.
You skipped right over.
did I, where was Willis Drive? Sorry.
Right under you.
Okay.
I did the same thing, so I can't criticize.
I must have dropped it. Okay.
What?
So, Willis Drive.
Well, I brought it up at the last meeting. Dave, did you have a chance to talk to DPW about doing a survey on that land up there? If it's possible?
No, I have not. Is that
Well-
the proposal is to have them rather than a private surveyor do it?
Well, someone.
Okay, someone.
Someone do it, because Colin and I went up there the day after the meeting. We put two more of the conservation little tags on a couple trees denoting that that's conservation land. But there's a question on the end closest to Route 40, the way there's a aluminum deck up here going out into the water, and we're not sure if that's on our land or right on the end of our land. So without a survey, it's hard to tell. We don't want to accuse someone of placing it on our property if it's not on our property. And there's another spot there in front of the same house where the person up the street pointed out that they were parking cars there, and that would be on our land. So the survey would help with a few issues down there. Also, up the other end, further down Willis, there are other cars parking what appears to be either on our land or beside it. So there's a couple issues like that. I think the only way to solve it or to move forward is to have a survey done, so we know where ours land
It should be the
starts and
lowest cost survey ever. It's
Right.
this end and that end.
Okay.
Right, and it's a funny shaped
About
lot.
the water in the road.
It's a funny shaped lot on both
Yes.
ends.
Yeah.
So it's,
Although, some of these
Nothing's easy.
lakefront properties,
Nothing's easy, I know.
given their history,
Right.
can, establishing the legal boundary can sometimes be very challenging.
right, and we don't accuse anybody of doing something
Right.
if it's.
I think, my opinion is it would be better to hire, a professional surveyor
Sure.
to do it,
Yep.
which I will certainly ask them.
I'm not even sure, does DPW have a surveyor on staff anymore? Because I forget the guy's name that was there before. Scott, he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. I think Trevor might qualify
might
as a
not.
professional.
Yeah.
But he might not be
surveyor, but-
licensed.
That's
Right.
That's
We
not
want
the
him
best use of
licensed.
his time.
Yes,
Right.
agreed.
Yeah,
Well, there's
you
that
licensed
too.
guy.
They know how to
So,
do it, but do you want a
Yeah.
licensed?
Yeah. So I'll ask Hancock, and this will be a good opportunity to press them to finish up Warren Pole.
Oh, yes, right.
And they say,
It's still open on the easement.
that still is, and it's
Okay.
and we also want the coolest wetlands surveyed. So I can say, we have the town has a couple of other projects, surveying projects, but we want Warren Pole wrapped up first.
Yes.
I think that'll be an incentive
Yep.
to get them to do it.
Yep, yeah. Is the coolest one not to jump to, so we good on that?
Yeah, that's, I think that's the only way to go forward.
Okay, okay.
with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
The neighbors take good care of they mow it and stuff. It looks pretty good, right, Carl?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
most
well, you
part.
cleaned up some stuff, I know,
Yeah.
so, yeah. Next was the ongoing work at 255 Princeton Street.
So I asked Jack Branson of DPW to look at that. He's the one that's been doing the regular inspections. He came back, he sent me an email with a bunch of photos, which I did forward to commission members. Did anyone get those?
I didn't see.
I didn't see
I don't
that.
think I saw that.
Okay, because I think it was just too large
Yeah, I
with
didn't
all the
get it.
photos. Although I noticed only 4 bounced back, so I figured maybe a couple of you got it. But the bottom line was, he said that there was a couple of things, that there was a blowout, I think in 1 or 2 locations of the erosion control. He told them to fix it. I told him that we still have not received, we've never received any SWIP reports. Said we want those. Said he would speak to his point of contact to get those done. And then with regards to the water level on the pond, he said virtually all of that is coming off the road. He said that really was not coming
It's
off
hard to
the site.
believe.
It's hard to believe.
That's hard to believe.
You want me to ask him to double check that?
Well, it's hard to believe. That's water's never
I mean,
been that
You've
high.
never
we've
seen
seen
it
that
that
for
high.
years, and
It's never been that high. I can't see it all coming
We've
off the
seen
road.
hurricanes hit, and it's never looked like that.
No.
I mean, it seems to make sense that, if the site is cleared, you get a little
Well,
bit
the
of
hill has
additional.
a lot of clearing on the side of that. I don't know if you've been by. The hill is cleared partway down the hill. The water that usually was caught by the soils and the grass and the trees up that way, it just runs down the hill now, so.
Yeah, I mean, it shows what happens when you cut all your trees down and
Right,
clear
right.
vegetation.
There's a lot of water that was never been like that before.
Well, certainly the commission, you could certainly take it all the way to an enforcement order. Enforcement order says, provide evidence to the commission that there's no increase in runoff from the site, which would be a violation of, I think, standard 2. I think that'd be perfectly reasonable, since what I'm hearing is you've never seen it this high.
It's never been that high.
And we've got these challenges going forward will increase.
Yeah.
Not just this site, but others.
I agree. So, you can think about that if you don't want to make a decision tonight, but I would recommend that they need to show us that there's no increase in runoff into that pond.
Yeah, so let's continue this till like our next meeting.
Have you
Maybe not make it-
having a chance to look at it?
No,
You don't
I'm
have
sorry.
any idea what it looked like before.
Yeah,
No, but I believe you.
But yeah,
No, I know.
it'll give you a chance in your spare
Right.
time to swing
Yeah.
by. It's an
spare
interesting
time.
In your spare
spare
time.
time.
I mean,
when you're not writing orders of conditions and
Right, yes.
all that other stuff.
I mean, Jack did say, yeah, it's very close to the road.
Yeah.
But take a look at it. It's
Okay.
quite the site.
Okay.
And then I think let's take it up at our next meeting. And maybe we do head down an enforcement path on it, honestly, on it. But
Because, I mean, that could have, implications to wildlife habitat.
Yep.
Yes.
It could certainly impact
Well,
the
and the
commission's
road.
interests.
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you notice any silt going into the pond?
No, I just looked from the street. You can see the height of the water.
Right, but you would see silt should follow it.
I wasn't looking that
Oh,
close.
okay,
at
all right, you
silt.
don't know.
And Jack didn't say anything about silt.
No.
So.
Okay.
They did. I would say they seem to have done a good job putting like the sock around it.
Oh, the silt fence, I watched them do it. They did a good job with
on
the
that.
silt fence and the sock around. But I just think with all the trees cut and the way that they changed the elevations up the top, maybe some of that water's coming down faster than it used to.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a chance to go away. I think a couple good rainstorms, you'd be pretty close to going onto Princeton Boulevard.
It was close.
The water's close.
Okay, all right, we'll monitor this at our next meeting. There's 2 more well, I don't have updates, because David and I talked about the last meeting, we had the issue on Carlisle Street, and we also had the issue on 35 Brick Kiln, and the town council has actions on both of those, and we've pinged him, and he has not responded, so we're guessing that's in process, but we don't really have an update, so we're staying on top of that. We'll let you know what's going on there. We also have Warren Poll CR. We did get I got your note on the BDR with Ann, so I think we'll be good on that. I'll get that out for our next meeting to the commission to review, but I think we're almost there. I happened to see Becky today, and she was happy with where we were, so I think we're almost there. On the coolest property, Mark, you were there
I was.
a week and a half ago or so.
Yeah. We met, Paul was there, all of Phil's agents, whatever they want to call themselves. We walked the site. There was a lot of work was done by DPW there. It probably shouldn't have been done, but it was done. We walked out back with a wetland there. Out front is a vernal pool. It's quite large. I didn't realize how big it was.
Yeah.
It's almost like an acre.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's bigger than when we were there in the fall. It's good size.
Yeah, it is. But out back, I walked in, a lot of tree cutting's been done, a lot of stumps have been removed in the wetlands, and I told the guys that were working there, you just can't do that. Clean the trails out, but you gotta keep away from the wetlands.
Really?
They have great plans and doing a lot of stuff, and they all got great intentions there. Just they're not being told what to do. They have no direction. They just do what they want.
Well, this is the first I've heard that there were trees and trees and stumps removed from the wetlands? Actually in the wetlands?
They weren't big. They were probably like that big, but the things have been cut out of it. You can see they've been cut.
And you're sure it was wetlands?
Inside the blue flags?
It was wet, okay, but maybe not wetlands.
Well, that was
certified.
Well, this is the reason the
Yeah.
tree committee went out there a couple weeks ago.
Did you see evidence of that?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so,
Yeah.
sounds like we got a problem.
Yeah, so we've had some conversations with Christine on this. You have, I know.
Well, there's kind of two things that happened. DPW was asked to go ahead and do a bunch of things, clean up the barn and make some parking, and, that was at direction of the town, and they did, I think, exactly what they were asked to do. They were careful about a lot of the trees, but, they had the junk all around the trees, and so, there's no point in,
There was a lot of crap
they, like you said, well-intentioned.
I will say there were vehicles with trees embedded in
Yeah,
them. So
and-
by definition, when
Yeah.
you move the vehicle,
Yeah.
the tree's going to get damaged.
Right, right, and I
Not
think,
cut out.
but I think the important thing from our point of view is the DPW work was done under the direction of our town tree warden, who has the authority for public trees. Christine, who comes to all the tree committee meetings, she's totally invested in, trying to do things the right way. This wasn't just a crazy, out-of-control thing. You can argue whether maybe a couple trees could have been saved or not, but I don't think that's worth discussion. Then the second activity was the trail clearing that I think you're referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, again, I think that was done under direction of somebody from the town, and, the trees, Mark, when I was there, I mean, yeah, sure, there were trees cut down in a wetland, but there wasn't anything significant.
Oh, nothing more than like a 3-inch, 2-inch caliper trees.
Yeah, I mean, really, they didn't do like a massive clearing or anything like that. So,
I just think they don't know where to delineate, and that's the problem. There's no direction out there.
Yeah.
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 That's the problem.
Well, they might have done it before it was flagged, too. Because they got in there right off the bat,
Okay.
yeah, true.
before it was even flagged.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that'd be really difficult. If it hadn't been
I
flagged.
mean,
yeah, but it's
they
sort
were
of,
working in there.
yeah.
Okay.
No, everybody who was working in there has great intentions. I
Oh,
don't
they
wanna
do.
stop that.
They do.
I think people kind of did what they were asked to do by the town. I think it's important.
Somebody, yeah.
Somebody.
It wasn't just, a bunch of,
Somebody.
uncontrolled.
Okay.
But I just happened to mention when I was there that I think the fellow in charge there, Phil, brought up things of, and I came back with, the Boy Scouts love to do projects, and we have money to give so the guys can do projects. So I just let that out there because I think it's a good idea we haven't done it in so long. When's the last time we did a Boy Scout project? A couple of years?
Oh, probably 4 or 5 years.
5 years.
I think it's been that, okay.
Yeah, and that, well, and again, not to belabor this, but I had a long chat with Phil this time I was out there. I've actually been out there a couple times. I think I might have mentioned to you guys a couple of weeks ago, and that was the tone of the discussion. We all have good intentions of everybody. Let's just pull everybody together and find ways to get even more things done.
Right. Yep. Agreed.
And,
So, yeah, go ahead.
then I walked across to, where Ray's back was putting in the pumpkins, and it was terrible in there with ticks. But we went in there, walked, he showed me where the delineation is, he has tape there, he showed me where he's gonna rototill or turn the soil over there for pumpkins. It seemed fine, not a problem at all.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. And John's already excited to go to the meeting on Friday night at 5
Yeah,
o'clock.
I'm super excited.
Okay.
What meeting is that?
Friday night, 5 o'clock.
Coolest meeting.
Coolest task force.
Friday at
Ask me.
5?
Yeah,
On site? Is that on site?
No.
No, at the pub.
Oh.
They might not want me to go.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple more things. Russell Mill, we had a resident who mentioned the tree damage last week or last meeting at Russell Mill. I did go out there. That was Mrs. Pasidi. I looked up her name, if I have that right. And I did go out there and look. I did see, it refreshed the evidence that I saw before, which is clearly somebody was being malicious and perhaps even dangerous and damaging lots of trees. I did bring my trail cam, I have one, and my intention was to set it up in a nice place to try to see if we can see something, and I realized anywhere that I put it that it's gonna catch somebody, it's gonna disappear. I would lose my trail cam. So I said, this is not gonna work. It just isn't gonna work. In the meantime, I did get an email from Chris from the NEMBA group, who is there on site a lot. They had also got the notice from Ms. Basidi, and they've been out there, and they said they had noticed the damage, but they were surprised at the extent of it on the site. But they will, same as us, it's like, there's not a whole lot we can do. They'll be there a lot. They have their eyes wide open looking, trying to monitor. Hopefully it's a one-off situation where somebody just got mad or drunk or whatever, but it was pretty extensive. The other thing Chris sent to me was that he sent me the draft of, speaking of the MOU with costs, we were talking about the cost stuff, the MOU with NEMBA, he's got a draft to me that I had sent to him, so he came back. So that was just this afternoon. He also talked about the shed. Remember, we talked about having the shed roof done.
Yep.
Said they do have a quote, they're willing to take care of the roof, but we do need a permit. It's over 200 square feet. It's 14 by 16, I think, something like that. So it does need a building permit. I think it's under 200. It
Do they
doesn't.
have to, they can apply, but they have to pay for a permit, or will that be exempt?
I'm not sure because it's town property. If we have to pay for it, I think we can pay for it or whatever. Although was it $50, $100? I don't know.
Is that why the dumpster's there?
So I'll get there.
Oh,
I'll
sorry.
get there. Yep. So we're going to still work on that. Try to make that happen. And then they did an Earth Day cleanup last Saturday on the site that included the trails, the parking lot, the soccer field, and the nature park. And that DPW dropped a dumpster there on site, and I don't know if they filled it up, but they got a lot of stuff in there into that dumpster, so that's looking good. And then when I had walked the site with them back in March, we identified a couple of signage things that they're going to work on, just some clarifying signs on the trails. So I'm feeling good about how they're supporting us on that site. It's going well. They're very anxious to keep helping and doing good stuff there. It's a busy site. There's a lot of people on that site. Yeah, so that's the dumpster, if you saw it.
I just have one more thing to add on the tree damage issue.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I've been speaking with Russ and Jeff Lurvy. I don't know. Does anyone know them? There's Russ and his son Jeff, his adult son Jeff. I guess they use that reservation quite a bit. And Russ was asking if the commission might be willing to engage the services of maybe an arborist or, otherwise a tree expert to assess the damage that's been done to the trees, if any of them are in mortal danger or just how severely injured they have been. You think maybe that's something Jim Martin would be able to do?
Or, well, yeah, we could
Bring it to the tree.
solicit the tree committee.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
a couple of arborists there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And then if there's more to it, and not to go on a big tangent, but one of our master plan goals that I have to report on, that didn't happen yet, it got delayed, is we have an assignment to come up with some sort of urban forestry plan. Yeah, right, like, we never heard of this, but the point is, I have a contact with a DCR forester, maybe the same guy we're trying to reach, but there are some things we could do with some of the town forests that might benefit from an expert either now or down the road. So we could have the tree committee guys, if they're willing, the true tree guys, take a quick look, but maybe if we do something bigger down the road.
So can you ask
I'll do that.
them to do that? Take a look at
I'll
those
do that. I'll ask
damaged
this week.
trees?
I think it's
Okay.
great.
Be great.
And do you want to be involved? I mean, it's really probably just Jim Martin and I walking the site.
You
next
just
nice day.
let me know by email.
Sure.
Whatever the
nothing to
result of the
do.
assessment is.
You don't have anything to do, right?
Focus on those order of conditions.
Right.
All right. So the only other things, David, was the 120 Concord Road. We've had that discussion a little bit about the forestry plan, so.
Yes, and I guess John spoke with the owner.
I spoke to the owner, and it's a state mandated thing they do every 10 years. They have a forester come in, he marks the trees that are gonna be cut. Everybody's notified, including the town of Chelmsford, because they're adjacent. And it's been done for years.
Okay.
His father did it, and Mark's done it, and,
I still think they need a forest cutting plan before they can actually do it.
it's a state, he's going with it's a state thing, so it's in the state's hands.
Well, right, but the state's requirements, as I understand them, for wetland protection are, at least to my read, are very similar to ours. So I think you're right. If there is a state plan that's sort of modern, I don't know what I mean by that, and they're following it, I think that meets what we would want to see, but I don't believe the state has any involvement during construction, during logging.
Well,
So that's probably your concern,
Well,
right?
they approved the forest cutting plan. And,
Yeah.
we need to see that. Because
Well, that's what I'm saying, is we
because
need
there
to-
are wetlands out there.
That's right, there are wetlands.
What are
So
they
you-
gonna do to protect the
Right,
wetlands?
and you've been asking them, and they're not responding.
And in fact, I called once and they didn't even know who I was talking about. So I think it might have been an answering service.
Mark was,
Very
he
strange.
had mentioned to me that he thought the forester had contacted the town.
Not as far as
Well,
I
they could have
know.
called somebody.
Well,
Well, there is-
I know they didn't call me.
Well, there is a DCR regional forester.
It's in
our
Lowell,
region.
and their office is in
Lowell, yeah.
Lowell. And I called the Lowell office, and they said, "Oh, I think that person retired," or they didn't know who I was talking about.
I might have the person's name. I'll take a look, make sure we're talking to the
If
same
you could,
person.
That would be great.
And the last thing was the fire tower. I went up to look at the fire tower, those trees that the state police wants to cut, and I told you when we talked yesterday that it's not clear to me what trees we're talking about, but if it's,
I actually got a voicemail today
Oh, okay.
from the state police guy, who said they haven't marked the trees yet.
Okay.
Apparently, he's waiting to hear from me that the commission is just conceptually okay with taking down 7 trees.
yeah.
So I'll let
You
him.
said that last time, I think.
Yeah.
Did we?
Well, we
Yeah.
said we're okay with taking the trees down, but what was there a possibility to kind of top them, where it made sense to?
I think, based on what I saw there, I'd say take them down.
Okay.
There's a lot of trees up
All
there.
right, you were out there. I
Yeah,
prefer
if
that.
there's 7 trees that they want to take down for state police, that's not going to move the needle a whole lot.
Okay, I'll let him know, and then once I do that, he'll proceed to mark them.
Okay. Okay.
Is that up at the
Top, right up to the top, the tower.
Did you climb up the top of the tower?
I drove right up to the tower.
That's locked up now. Is that something?
Yeah, it's locked around the tower,
Right.
but you can drive
I
right
went
up
there
to it.
some years back with both my kids. We went all the way up there, and it's quite a view. There was
Yeah.
a ranger up there, and you can see for like
Once,
100
I
miles.
guess once in a while you can get up there, but, yeah.
It's spectacular. It really changes your perspective on the Merrimack Valley.
It's an amazing view. I mean, you see for 100 miles.
All you see is trees. I kept going, where's 495?
Can we request the state police to,
Yeah.
we need a site visit on the tower with the whole commission.
Hey, joking aside, could we ask them if they could, well, is it them or is it the fire guy in the summer?
Yeah, because
that's up there?
that's just for their radio.
Right,
that's
it is DCR's fire tower, and they gave permission to the state police to put their microwave transmission.
All right, the last thing is, we don't have any meeting minutes available to approve, so.
Well, no, there is one more thing.
Oh.
We touched on it earlier, but Mark asked Brandon Canada, the new superintendent of the water district, thank you, Mark, to reach out to me and introduce himself and ask for a meeting. And I was really, really happy to see that because at the very least there has been a really serious communication deficiency with the water district. It was alluded to tonight that I didn't get a copy of the letter that Mr. Higgins was talking about. They have told the applicant to do things at Hildreth that I had no idea about, and the neighbors called me out on the site. They thought there were violations. So I think this is really going to be helpful.
Excellent.
Mark and I are going to meet with them and talk about improving communication and keeping each other in the loop. So thanks again, Mark. I was really glad to see
I'd like
that.
to get the other East and North Chelmsford involved too, so it's all one town. Let's get it all
True.
done at the same time.
True.
We don't have as much business in east and north, but right at the moment,
No,
but yeah, you're right.
Do they have a boards of water commissioners as well?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
North Chelmsford they do.
Oh.
I
They're
don't know
all
East.
actually independent, quasi-governmental bodies.
And you're not allowed to ask why.
But center is about 80% of the town, is that
Yeah.
roughly right, Mark?
Yeah, something like
Ballpark?
Maybe, yeah.
Something like
A
that.
little less.
That's good to hear, though.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
But it's funny, if you're watching the town Facebook pages and people complaining about water quality, I'm like, I don't have any complaints, but they're different systems.
Yeah, okay.
I move to adjourn.
Motion from Chris, second from Mark. I don't know, we have to second that. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey.
Meeting's adjourned.
Who
All
was
right.
the bet today?
Who said 10?